Hi, everyone. Let me just go ahead and see if it works. First of all, I'm Valerie Soldate. I'm a project manager at HackOn, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about using big data to optimize occupancy information. And to get started, I think we're going to take a step back and really just talk about, COVID-19. So the impact of COVID-19 has been felt worldwide and has had a huge impact on public transit as an industry. And in order for transit agencies to help control the spread of the virus, there's been some major social changes that have been required in order for us to keep our customers safe. And so I want to talk about these two large social changes. And the first is, of course, wearing face masks or coverings. And currently over 100 countries require or recommend masks. I know in Germany we're required to wear them when we're using public transit. And we've seen a massive customer outreach from our transit agencies via social media, their websites, and getting this information out. So thank you, first of all. And we've seen also transit agencies take charge by posting posters on doors as reminders. And at least here in Hanover, I've seen pretty much all customers use face masks and coverings. So first off, this is really, really great news because this is a good way for us to really fight the spread of this virus. And now to talk about the second big social change, which is social or physical distancing, or also safe distancing. And we've seen some really, really great innovative ideas here from transit companies as well, such as blocking seats or using rear door entry. Of course, we've seen a lot of customers buy tickets now online via the app, really to get away from that face-to-face transaction. And additionally, we've started to see that some transit agencies have been providing customers with occupancy data. And so the first question you're probably going to ask is, well, how? How do they get this data? How does this happen? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what we worked on with the BBZ. So our company HackOn provides trip planners, and we worked with the BBZ to integrate their occupancy data. So let's take a look a little bit at what they have. So they currently have a passenger counter for about 20% of their vehicles. And so with this passenger counter, we can start to see a little bit of what's going on in the network and how full their actual trams are. But there's some downsides here because the prognosis can be limited and we don't know where the passengers are going. So we also notice there's some portions of the complete network that are just missing. So we said to ourselves, well, what other data sources could we really use to improve the occupancy information or prognosis? What can we use? And so this is why the BBZ came to HackOn, because we provide them with a trip planner. And this trip planner performs over 8.3 million trip requests per month. So that means customers are telling us where they're starting from and where they're going. We are giving them information regarding their first and last mile. We're also finding out what time they're traveling and, when are they leaving. And we also know, for example, what routes they're using and what transfers they're maybe planning to use. So if we have all this information, maybe we can kind of see what's happening in the network on a whole. So in order to do that, we have to enrich our timetable data and kind of take this pool of information and say, okay, let's break it down and let's use trip requests as, let's say, a passenger. And we now know for this passenger that they are going to be using this start destination, this destination. They're going to maybe be transferring here. And so we can start to pull this information and get a picture of what this might look like. So just for you guys, I've got a picture of what this actually does look like. And so once we kind of know the number of trip requests, we have such more of a full picture of what's actually going on, what's being requested in the network, what's happening. And so from this, we can definitely see where customers may want to get on and off in the system, and we can kind of figure out what ways they're traveling. And so this looks really pretty, But the question is, well, how accurate is this, and how can we compare this to what's actually happening? So if you recall, at the beginning, we actually had the ability to look at the number of passengers due to the passenger counter. So the first thing we said was, let's compare the two. So if we look at the graph here to the right-hand side, you'll see the blue line. And this is the number of queries or trip requests that are occurring. The passenger line is, of course, the number of passengers counted is the red line here. So you notice, it looks like there's a little bit more requests going on than actual passengers being in the vehicle. So what does this mean? Well, this means that we have to create a calibration or a calibration factor so that we can adjust for these differences and try to get the rate of error down. So we went ahead and we calculated what we would consider our calibration factor, and then used this and then retested to see what the difference was. And after using the calibration, we were able to see the average difference was only 8 passengers. And keep in mind, these are pretty full vehicles at the time because this was before Corona, so there was about 150 to 240 passengers per tram or bus. So the error is actually relatively low. And so we can really use this to kind of say, okay, this is great. Now I have this occupancy information. What am I going to do with it? So as you know, HackOn, we create trip planning apps, and we're able to take this information and we're able to feed it back into the app. And so when the user then plans their next trip, they can start seeing information in terms of what prognosis is there. Is it going to be a very full train or not very full train? In this case, maybe I decide to take a later one if I see that it's too full. Additionally, with more prognosis, we can kind of estimate who's getting on or off public transit. So for example, if I know you're going over a main station, I can then say, okay, well, let's go ahead and get out maybe a stop early so that the train doesn't get so full. So now you've seen some dynamic information. It's fairly easy to understand. I imagine you probably looked at that and understood it exactly. But let's talk about the generation of feedback and how to maybe make this algorithm a little bit better. So let's talk a little bit about a living algorithm and what that means. So if you want to continue to improve your calibration factor, then you have to collect data and you have to then verify what you predicted and what actually occurred and see if they're the same. If they're not, then you need to, of course, change the algorithm. And you can do this using feedback loops. So in order to create those feedback loops, we can do a couple things. We can directly ask the customers to rate something in the app and say, was this information accurate? What was the actual feeling? And then, of course, we could also ask drivers or staff to do the same thing. Maybe they can also collect information and send it to us as well. And of course, using historical data over time is always a plus because you can then provide long-term prognosis for occupancy for the future. So we're all hoping that we have some sort of after COVID-19, at least I would say we are. But the reality is this could really take some time, and we don't really know. There's a lot of unknowns here. But even so, the long-term benefits of occupancy information and data collection from your apps can help you to improve your services. And this can help you because you can start using prognosis information on occupancy so that you can help passengers that maybe want to be a little bit more flexible stay comfortable when they book. They can choose maybe an earlier trip that's not as full. You can start adjusting the schedule according to the estimated ridership, which we heard a little bit about earlier. And of course, as you get more information for real-time passenger requests, you can start to say, do I need an extra bus or not? For example, if you see an event is spiking a number of trip planning requests, you can start to then plan for those things in advance. So I hope this was really interesting for you, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you so much.